Meet Olivia Vinson. She just cranked out 7,079 pull-ups in 24 hours, nearly doubling the previous Guinness World Record. And when she started training, she didn't even think she could do 4,000 reps. It was honestly a pretty inspiring chat that will definitely make you want to set the bar higher for yourself. I've been seeing you and Michael for ages. I think originally I saw Michael because he was going for the Guinness World Record for the assault bike.
Yeah, the individual 24-hour.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think he took that off me, the bastard.
Yeah, I think he did. But then there was another guy that came in and took it off him. And then he did it again and he's got it back again. Yeah.
Oh, so he's gone for it again since he got it.
Yeah. So he did it for a second time. It would have been maybe December now. So yeah, he got it back again. I think you interviewed a guy. Was it from America who did it?
Yeah, that's right. Ryan took it off me, and then so Michael took it off Ryan.
Yeah. Yep. So everyone's sharing it around, which is
Yeah. You guys look like you've been doing a bunch of different records, right? Like you and Michael together. I mean, I was trying to work it out. So you got the mixed team assault bike world record as well. Thanks for also stealing that off me.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
And then the burpee one as well.
Yeah. So they did. So Mike and then about 5 people from our gym did the 24-hour burpee one. It was probably about a month ago now. And then so they got that. We need to submit all of that, but yeah, they did pretty well at that as well, which is cool.
A bit of a fascination with Guinness World Records at the gym, obviously.
Yeah, we've gone through a bit of a phase, I think. It's just been a good challenge, like a very clear bar to set, and a very clear challenge for people to kind of get into. It's just, pushing boundaries, I think, which people are really enjoying, which is, it's a big part, it's becoming a big part of the culture. And just doing things that people genuinely didn't think that they could do, which is cool.
It is cool. And did you, before you did the pull-up record, was that your first challenge or did you have stuff prior to that?
Oh, no. So I was part of the team that did the 24-hour assault bike one. So I did that. That was my first kind of 24-hour thing. And then, then Mike suggested doing 24 hours of pull-ups. When he first suggested it, I thought, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way that I can do that. But yeah, so after a little while, I kind of thought about it and I thought, maybe I'll have a go. And yeah, that's kind of where it all started.
So it started from the mixed assault bike record. How did you guys go? So I assume 2 girls, 2 guys, or is that how it worked?
We had 2 girls, 3 guys.
Okay.
So I think you could have up to 6 people.
Oh, nice.
So we had 3 guys, 2 girls, and that was, it was, like I say, my first real experience at 24 hours of anything. I learned a lot about like food and fueling and nutrition within that. You know, you're doing 24 hours and you would understand, you just don't really feel like eating any real like nutritious food. It's just kind of, you want to snack on, high sugar, high carbs mostly. But there was a point there within that 24 hours where it was probably about 3 o'clock in the morning where I just started to feel not too great, quite nauseous. And then Mike basically, told me that I needed to have a full meal. So I forced down, I think it was like spag bowl or something. Not like, it was not enjoyable, but I felt so much better afterwards. And there were people within our team, one of the guys who I think probably didn't fuel quite to what he needed, and he suffered a lot. So, there's just so much to learn within it, like the more you do it. Yeah.
How did you guys break up the distance out of curiosity?
Oh gosh, now you're testing me. We did it within minutes. So to begin with, it was, I think we all started maybe 5 minutes each and we rotated like that. And then as the further we got in, so one of the girls kind of dropped off, and then the boys picked up her slack a little bit and just split it between them. And then I think there was another point where I dropped from 5 minutes down to 4 minutes, and then the boys again picked up the slack a little bit. Obviously, the boys' just natural output is significantly more than chicks, just naturally. So yeah, we didn't lose too much in doing that, but it was a really cool experience, and I love the team environment as well. It's so different to doing it individually.
Yeah, I mean, I personally found it really difficult doing 5 minutes and then just relaxing for like half an hour as well. Did you struggle with that? Of just like the on and off?
I don't like. I actually found it worked quite well. 5 minutes on, and then I think it would have been 20 minutes off, and then jumping back on. So that cycle was actually for me, a perfect kind of rest period, so that I could get back on and go as hard as I could, and then jump off. But again, I hadn't done anything on my own for 24 hours, so I didn't really have anything to compare it to. But just now looking at it, I can understand how it could feel worse. Kind of you cool down a little bit, and then you're having to get back into it. Having done the pull-ups and just consistently moving it, I can definitely understand how it would feel. Not so good getting hot and cold.
How fast was it from the assault bike, which was your first challenge, to then deciding I'm going to go do the pull-ups?
Oh, it would have been... So I think Mike he first suggested the pull-ups maybe 6 months later, and then it wasn't for another 4 months around 4 months where I actually decided, okay, maybe I'll have a go at this. And it was mainly, I mean, a big part of that was also because we were getting ready for our wedding, and I didn't really feel like having enormous lats going into my wedding, or being like too jacked for the wedding. So I'm like, let's just leave this until after we get married, and then I can do as I please. Because, once I did start training for it, I definitely noticed that, the muscle gain in my upper body. That's for sure.
And how long was the training prep from the time that you started training to when you did it?
So I started. I did about 3 months of training for pull-ups before I did my first attempt. So I had my first attempt in September last year, and I got about 11 hours in and pulled my bicep tendon. So I had to drop out, and then I took about 2 months off completely, trying to allow my bicep to repair. And then from that point, I had about another 3 months training. Then I jumped in and did the 12-hour world record, pull-up world record, and then I had about 4 weeks between that and attempting the 24-hour again. So we used the 12-hour as it was more of a training than it was a full attempt, but we thought, why not record it as an attempt? I knew at that point that I was going to hit the 12-hour record and potentially the 24-hour record in that 12 hours. So we recorded it and got the judges and everything in as well.
What was the 12-hour record for females?
So it was 2,775, and then I got 4,466.
But wait, isn't that better than the 24-hour record? Wasn't the previous...
Yeah.
What was the previous 24-hour record before you snatched it?
It was 4,081. So I broke the...
Oh, so you beat it in 12 hours?
Yeah, I broke it in under 11 hours.
Oh, crazy.
So I technically did it within that 12-hour training session initially, and then obviously the 24 hours just about, seeing how much I could get, how much I could beat it by.
I'm so surprised that you broke the 24-hour record in 11 hours, but then decided to still go for the 24-hour record. That is a massive test of character, because I don't think many people would have broken the record, torn a bicep, and then go, I'm actually going to do it again. Did it get broken in that time?
No. I've had...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've had people ask me the same question. And I guess I wasn't going into it actually to break the record. That wasn't that was a part of it. I mean, it created a very clear goal and mark that I wanted to attempt to beat. But it was more about the 24 hours. So, you know, although I'd done 12 hours and I'd hit more than the 24-hour record, the real test for me was to see how I could go in 24 hours. So, yeah, when we were there doing the 12 hours within the training, so that was about a few months after I'd torn my bicep and I'd kind of come back. And we were there and we'd got to the 12 hours and there were people, and including myself, and we were thinking, do we just continue? Because if I stop now, I'm going to have to, you know, start all over again and do these 12 hours all over again. So I was definitely considering just continuing on. But then I also knew that I'd approach it in a different way for the 24 hours. Like at that point, my hands were swelling quite badly and I could feel my bicep pulling a little bit. So I knew there was a risk if I continued that I might not be able to finish, versus if I stop now and then kind of look at how I've approached it and then make another game plan for the 24 hours, then I, you know, hopefully will actually be able to do better than what I felt like I could have done if I continued.
So what did you end up getting for the 24 hours? 7,000, just over 7,000, right?
Yeah, 7,079. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's honestly so crazy. So ridiculous. And it's so high. And I just love that it's so much higher than so many males that I know that have gone for it as well. And I'm sure you've heard that probably heaps. Like it's
yeah, I've heard that, and I find it hard to wrap my head around a little bit because I'm, you know, I've said that to people who were there as well. You know, when I went into it, I didn't even think I could get 4,081 in 24 hours, let alone 7,079. So I said to people, I'm like, how has no one done this before me? Like, why? How am I the one that's, you know, getting 7,079? But yeah,
it is quite nuts. I mean, like, especially because obviously I've been interviewing quite a lot of people who've done challenges, and it's rarer that you find females going for these type of records.
Yeah.
So to see your record come through and objectively just be so high, regardless gender or not, it is so impressive. And I think that it's good because I think a lot of women will see it as well and be like, holy shit, like I can go do something like that. It's good. You set the standard for the ladies and I love it.
Well, like I say, it was just purely each week I was just seeing where my threshold was at. So every Saturday I'd kind of test, I'd do a longer session and I'd test, you know, and I started with, you know, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, and every week that I went on, my reps just increased. And yeah, like I say, even I found it a little bit hard to wrap my head around. The training was just working and my strength was just gradually increasing, and I was like, well, I'm not going to complain about it. I'll just, you know, run with it. Yeah, it was, like I say, unexpected for me as well. My husband Mike would say otherwise. Being the one that said it and was like, oh, you know, I knew you could do this all along, but yeah.
How did you train for it? Like, what was your strategy? Was it just pull-ups flat out? I mean, did you break them up daily? How did you kind of navigate it?
So my first 3 months before I pulled my bicep were very different to the 3 months following, to be honest. Initially it was just finding, like I said, where my threshold is. So, you know, we did a test to see how many I could do within, you know, 1 hour, 2 hours, and then, you know, 5 hours. And then a lot of it was, you know, upper body, biceps, lats, shoulders. I'd had issues with my shoulders, so there was a lot of prehab stuff that I needed to do to just make sure I stayed on top of those. Like I've had rotator cuff issues in the past. And then core as well. So I was doing 5 days of training, 4 days where it was kind of a push-pull movement just to maintain balance within my upper body, and then a test on the Saturday. But then after my first 24-hour attempt and injuring my bicep, we realised my biceps were just taking way too much load. So from that point, after I'd taken some time off and it was better and I could go again. We actually dropped my training down to 4 days a week. And 2 of those days were double sessions. So I did morning and night. And then I had 3 days recovery. And that made, honestly, the biggest difference within my strength. I went from, that was where my greatest strength gains were made, by actually increasing how much recovery I was having. And then also focusing a lot on my lats and building those up to be as strong as possible to try to take some of the load off my biceps. And again, that was where my numbers started to really shoot up.
So were you doing that through like focusing on like pull downs and things like that, or were you doing direct pull up training with like wider grip?
So I was doing some, lat pull downs, but then I was doing, mostly it was pull ups, but then I was also doing like rows, like bent over rows, and really focusing on my lats there. I was doing a lot of activation stuff, so using, like you say, the lat pull downs and then bands and that sort of thing to activate my lats before I did any pull ups. So there was a lot of prehab kind of activation stuff that I would do before each session. But then, so like you say, I was also using a lot of bands when I was doing my pull-ups. So I was doing higher reps, but using bands, and I actually found that helped me to activate my lats a lot more than just doing pull-ups body weight. So again, I found that helped significantly. It was mostly about just making sure my lats were activating properly, because I'd get to a point where I'd start to fatigue and my biceps would take over. And it was just, working around that and making sure that my lats were staying active the whole time. And I think that's a big difference between men and women a little bit as well. Men tend to be a lot more naturally strong when it comes to those muscles, whereas women, obviously, we're not as strong naturally as men.
I guess that's forced you to like what you're saying is refine the movement to such detail. Because I spoke with Liam. I don't know if you've heard of Liam McLeod, but he actually I was doing some deep dive and he commented on one of your posts. So
yeah, I've spoken to him before. Yeah.
So he was doing like 10,000 reps a week, and like, which is a ridiculous volume. But I think it's interesting what you're saying, like, because he's maybe naturally stronger, he just was repping so much volume, but maybe there's some like lessons there with like drilling the movement, so you're actually using the right muscles more. Because I've never heard of anyone I've never really even thought about it like that. Like, break it down using bands. Like, if in my head when I train for something, or if I see someone else, I just drill the same thing on repetition. Like, there is no, like, I might still have a strength base or something like 2 days a week. But it's like, if my goal was pull-ups, I would just be doing pull-ups. That's it. So it's interesting to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, well, that was Mike. So I followed Mike's programming, and I would, the same as you, like when he suggested doing banded pull-ups, I was like, why am I doing banded pull-ups? Like, that's going backwards.
Yeah, because you can't do that on the day. Like,
well, exactly. But yeah, it made, like you say, it made a huge difference in just making sure that each rep I was activating the right muscles, and those muscles were getting stronger. And it's the same with, say, the bent over rows, using, rather than just, getting a whole heap of weight and just, throwing a bit of weight around, it was using lower weight, but actually making sure that every single rep I was activating my lats and just focusing on that mind muscle connection. I think also makes a huge difference. And the more I focused on those muscles, the more I could activate and make those muscles stronger.
Yeah, crazy. So what type of weekly volumes were you doing in your peak for it?
Pull-up wise. So by the end, like I say, like Saturday training session was 12 hours of pull-ups, but that gradually increased. So it was, I might have been doing 8 hours a week before, 7 hours a week before. So my Saturdays were pretty, they were a lot of hours spent just purely doing pull-ups and finding where my threshold was as well. So, we tested out a little bit to see how many I could do in a minute or how many I could hold within 30 seconds, and finding my failure point on those Saturdays. So that was kind of the testing ground. During the week, it was, I might have been doing 2 hours twice a week, either with bands or weighted. And again, it was just seeing how many I could do to a certain point. I was probably training it up to about 80%, not to failure when I was doing those. And then on the Saturdays, it was more about just finding really where I could push to. And then each week we would just, gradually increase from that point. It's just, consistent overload week in, week out, which,
Yeah,
made me
nice.
stronger.
So walk me through 24 hours, hour by hour. Let's hear it. I saw your hands at the end of it, and I'm shook that they looked so good. You could have been a bloody hand model after it.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
I had issues initially with, to be honest, pretty early on, about 5 hours in. So I'd figured out how to strap my hands pretty well. Obviously, I had hours and hours of training to kind of figure out what worked and what didn't work. My first 24-hour attempt, my hands looked worse than my second 24-hour attempt, because again, it was just trial and error on how to tape my hands to stop the blistering. And then trial and error with grips as well. So I ended up with Victory grips, which I found they were a lot thicker than a lot of the other ones, which I think helped as well. But yeah, about 5 hours in, my hands started to swell, and having watched Truett and his hands and how that went down, my hands swelling 5 hours in, that was, going to be problematic. So we had to figure that out, and I was wearing wrists or sweatbands around my wrists to stop my grips from digging into my wrists. And we found that they were actually making my hands swell. So I needed to take those off to reduce the swelling. So I did that. But in doing that, it meant that my tape on my hands was kind of pulling, because the sweatbands were protecting the tape a little bit. And so the tape started to pull and strip, and then it started to dig into my hands and kind of twist. And at that point, it was starting to get pretty uncomfortable. All of the reps that I was doing, like I say, I was just digging into my hands, and I could see that I was starting to rub. And at 5 hours in, I don't need blisters that early. So we ended up needing to stop, retape my hands, and figure out another solution to stop my grips pulling around my wrist. But once we figured that out, I didn't need to retape my hands for 9 hours after that. It was just like, I didn't even have to think about it. It was, I couldn't have asked for that to have gone any better, to be honest, once we'd fixed that. And then, like I say, after 9 hours, I retaped my hands, and the same deal. It just lasted me all the way right through to the end. So blister-wise, turned out pretty well. I did both of my, the nails on my little fingers, I pulled off my skin. So I ripped off my 2 little nails, which was quite painful. But I didn't realise that until after I'd stopped. You know how you just go and go and go, and then you stop and you're like, oh, like that hurts, but you hadn't really noticed it as I went. But yeah, initially, right from the start, to be honest, it was the first 2 hours I actually found reasonably uncomfortable, and I knew that going into it, having done it so often, because I front loaded a lot of my reps. So I was starting off with a pretty high rep range. I was doing 6s and 7s pretty early on.
Is that per minute?
No, that was every 45 seconds.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So, yeah.
That's a different one.
I had found my little sweet spot. I tried out 30 seconds and I tried 60 seconds and then I was like, well, why not try 45? And
I like that. I really like that. I'm stealing that for sure. Do you know what? I know it sounds so, people listening, they're probably like, whatever, but it is so interesting.
What was that? Sorry.
I'm just saying, it's why in my head forever, I've always had it. It's either every 30 or every 60. And I 100% agree. Like 30 just is a little bit too fast for like a fatiguing movement, like pull-ups. But 60 seconds is definitely too long. So why not 45? It's crazy. It's so silly that I haven't thought of that. So that worked for you, and did you hold that most of the time?
Yeah. Yeah, most of the 24 hours was done every 45 seconds, and it made yeah, like you say, 30 seconds was just too fast, whereas 60 seconds, I just felt like I was kind of like sitting around a lot. And then as well, it just meant I wasn't holding on to the bar for as long. So, that probably saved my hands a little bit as well because my rep range wasn't quite as high. So like I say, initially I front loaded, and so every couple of hours my reps were dropping down, and so I had something to consistently look forward to, and that was, I don't think I could have done it without that. Having just like those little things to look forward to, and the little drop in reps, knowing that it's like, you know what, I've got 30 more minutes and I'm going to be dropping down to 5s, or I'm going to be dropping down to 4s or 3s, or whatever number I was at that point in time.
How low did you get with the rep drop?
So the lowest by the last 2 hours, I was down to 3s and 2s, but I had shifted it up so that I was doing it every 30 seconds at that point. So so that I could still be getting 5 minute, but I was kind of alternating between 3s and 2s. Mentally, I felt like for the last 2 hours I could do that, but like I say, holding 30 seconds for full 24 hours was just, it was a lot.
Yeah, I bet. How you feeling since it finished? Like, you recovered okay?
Yeah, I've recovered pretty well. I had DOMS for pretty badly for maybe 3 days, and then after about 3 days I kind of tapered off, and by a week I was back to normal. I think my central nervous system and mentally I wasn't ready to do anything too challenging, but yeah, physically, DOMS wise, I felt great. My bicep tendon, there was a little niggle for maybe about 4 weeks afterwards when I was just doing some movements, but other than that, yeah, I felt fine. I feel completely fine now.
You've taken a very interesting approach to the record, the way you've done it. Like, compared to stuff that I've heard, it's very different, and I like it because you've definitely individualized it to what you think is best for you, which is ultimately what people should do. But I think you get stuck hearing what other people are doing, like whether it be that every 30 seconds, every 60 seconds, how they're training, their volume loads. Like, you've definitely taken your own approach.
Yeah, well, I don't think I paid too much attention to how everyone did what they did. And to be honest, there aren't that many women who have done it, so I didn't have that much information to go off, to be honest. So it probably worked in my favor, needing to just figure it out on my own. And I knew from, I've got years of training behind me in the gym, and I know from that I perform better and I get stronger a lot faster when I have more recovery. So by increasing my recovery, it made a huge difference. Whereas it's counterintuitive. And it took me a long time to figure this out, because in my mind, it's like you do more, you get better. Whereas it took me a while to figure out just I perform so much better by, doing maybe 4 days a week and then 3 days recovery I get stronger so much faster. It's like I say, it seems counterintuitive, but it works for me anyway.
It's good. It's good. I like it. I do like it. I think there's a lesson for everyone, and myself included. Maybe take some more time off and you might actually get better.
Well, you don't know. I mean, test it out, because everyone's different. But yeah, it's definitely works. Definitely works for me. And obviously,
sorry,
I was just going to mention like nutrition and that sort of thing, like protein and sleep and getting enough water and that sort of thing also definitely played a part.
Do you have the specific moments in your head where they were the darkest times? I'm sure the graveyard shift, 12 till 4 a.m. sticks in there somewhere.
I actually love that time of the day when I'm doing, these sort of challenges. I've done 4x4x48, and everyone's like, oh, the early morning, like 12 to 4 runs are just horrendous. And they were my favorite because it was so peaceful. Like, everything's just still, there's no one around, and I'm just like, love it.
I can't relate.
So Well, like I actually didn't mind it, but at about the 3 a.m. mark, I started to feel really nauseous, and that kicked my butt. And so 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, and I need some form of anti-nausea or something, and we're trying to get our hands on it, and it just wasn't possible. And I felt like I was just like dry reaching. I couldn't actually, throw up, and I just felt so nauseous, and there was nothing that we could do to kind of stop feeling like that. And then so I started to struggle to get my food in properly and get my obviously my fluids and that sort of thing in. And that was probably the hardest part, was trying to manage that. I just sit there and I just feel horrendous. And I had so instead of having to watch a clock or to think about anything too much, I had a timer, and I had my headphones in, and so the beep would go off every time. So I'd just sit there with my eyes shut, and the beep would go off, and I'd stand up and I'd do my reps, and I'd sit back down, and I'd just like try to have these like mini naps and just pull myself out of feeling just, so sick. But I also knew, I'm 18, 19 hours in, like, I'm not tapping out at this point. I've come way too far to stop just because I feel a little bit sick. And I also thought, if I don't get to 24 hours, knowing me, I'd want to restart and do the 24 hours again. And I to be honest, by that point, I was ready to not train pull-ups anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was getting through, sucking it up.
Oh. What time did you start?
I started at 8 a.m.
Okay.
And then finished, 8 a.m, obviously.
So did you have moments where you were like, obviously you'd have moments where you don't want to do this, but did you have specific points where you thought about quitting?
Oh, no. There was no question in my mind about whether I was quitting or not. I was in it and I was finishing it. The only way that I wasn't going to finish it is if my body gave out. And I managed to stay on top of that, which was awesome. And just activating my lats. Another thing that helped massively was using a Theragun on my lats. And again, it just triggered that my muscle connection a little bit. So whenever I felt like my biceps were engaging too much, would pull out the gun, just run them over my lats a little bit, and then it helped to fire them up a little bit more. So that helped to prevent my biceps from taking too much of the load and pulling them again.
Out of curiosity, how many pull-ups could you do prior? Like body weight pull-ups, max set. How many could you do prior before you start training for this?
I could do 18 strict.
Oh, that's a pretty good amount.
Yeah, but in my head, when I first started it, this is the reason I didn't think I could do it, because I was watching the chick who had it before me, who did 4,081, and I think she could do maybe like 27 strict pull-ups. And I said to Mike, I'm like, I can't do this. Like, she can do 27, I can only do 18. And Mike just kept reminding me, this isn't, doing it strict, unbroken is totally different game to doing 24 hours of pull-ups. It's endurance versus sprint. And he turned out to be...
So did he coach you through this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is your background, like, because he's a coach, but is your background a coach as well?
I'm a qualified PT, but I haven't worked as a PT in quite a few years now. I do graphic design now, which is quite different to...
Yeah, you're not doing pull-ups and graphic design, but...
No.
Oh, 18 is an impressive... Like, I reckon if I was to go for a set right now, max, I'm getting like 12 tops clean. Absolutely tops.
It's just what you train, right? I mean, you train...
Yeah, but you said you got 18 before you even trained for it. Like, specifically for the event. That's wild.
Yeah.
It is,
but, sorry.
I was just gonna, like, I'm just thinking about my partner. She's a beast, right? Like, she's a really fit chick, and she can do a lot of stuff, but I don't reckon she could do more than 2 pull-ups. And I just wonder why not? It's got me very curious about where the strength discrepancy is. And she doesn't train pull-ups, so obviously that's quite a big factor, right? But Yeah, it's very impressive, and I'm so intrigued in how you've done it because I think there's obviously a lot of lessons there, and like the way you've approached it is very different. Like you've prioritized recovery, which I mean, like I'm just going to use Liam as an example because I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. Liam was doing like 10,000 reps a week, pull ups every single day,
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of reps, and you only got just behind him. And it's so interesting.
Well, just
'cause you're a
behind
coach.
him, he got 9,000, over 9,000, didn't he?
It's not that much different though. Like, it's, yeah, I mean, it's still different. It's a little bit different. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I just think your approaches are very different. Yeah, and it's interesting. I wonder, obviously, you got to find the approach that works for you. There's no doubt. But I think there's a couple of lessons there, like from a performance perspective, not like a psychology perspective, but performance here. Like, I think prioritizing recovery is something that people don't a lot of the time do when they're training for these things, myself included. I think that's a big lesson.
Yeah, and it's like I say, so my first 3 months versus my second 3 months were very different. So my first 3 months, I probably approached it in a similar way where I was doing a lot more pull-ups with less rest, and I was under a lot more fatigue. So I was pushing closer to failure more regularly. And then once I had changed it up for the next 3 months after my injury, introducing more rest, only going to about 80% and really focusing on those muscles, like my muscle connection, and also, lowering the weight and just focusing on muscle activation. That's where my gains were just increased significantly.
So when you were drilling the pull-ups for like your long days, were you still doing them like as a simulation like you would on the day? So you were doing every 45 seconds?
So initially I started out every 60 seconds, and then we tried out every 30 seconds. And then we found 45 seconds and then just stuck to that. But the first few sessions, few weeks was very much about just finding my threshold, my failure points were what worked for me, what didn't work for me. So there's a lot of trial and error, to be honest. And then once 45 seconds worked, we just figured out like how many can I do within, 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. Yeah.
And were you close to before you went for the record, were you doing around that 5 to 6 rep mark every 45 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was emulating what I would do, or what I would hope to do in the initial hours of doing 24 hours. Yeah.
And how did you incorporate the band into it then? So you would use the band for like an hour session or something, and you would do the same rep volume with the band?
So the band was during the week when I'd have 2 days where I was only doing pull-ups. So I'd do 2 days where I was doing pull-ups during the week, and I'd either do them, some of them were banded, some of them were weighted, and some were just body weight. And then most weekends it would just be body weight. If I was having a deload week, I might introduce the band and see how I go, or how many I can do with the band. But that was, again, deload, so I was dropping back, only working at maybe like 60%. When I was really testing, most of the time it was just using my body weight as I would normally within the 24 hours. It was, I would have loved to use the band, but
Yeah. Oh, how much of a role has Mike played in this? It sounds like he's been pretty influential.
yeah, huge. I wouldn't have even attempted this if it wasn't for him. He's did all my programming, and he supported me the whole way through it. So it's been massive.
Has he got another one lined up for you already, or?
Not at this point, but who's to say what's ticking over in his mind? I'm sure
Is there something ticking over in your mind, or is that you just? I mean, I hate this question. That's why I never ask like what's next, because you've just done this like phenomenal achievement. The last thing you want to be thinking about, but it does make you curious, because I'm now very invested in you doing something else.
Well, to be honest, I've spent so much time inside doing pull-ups and training inside that I want to step outside a little bit. And I know running is huge at the moment, but I do feel a little bit of a pull toward doing maybe some endurance running and that sort of thing. I missed cardio while I was doing pull-ups. I'd kind of stopped doing everything else in the last couple of months and just purely did pull-ups, and I'm ready to do some cardio.
I think the one thing that sucks about these type of challenges is the fact that there's just like not a lot of adventure to it. And, you know, it's really nice when you're able to go for like a run, or you can travel from point A to point B, because you get to have all these experiences and all these things along the way. But training inside a gym, doing the same thing, it's pretty monotonous, like repeating it, and it's just the work you have to do. Like, there's no avoiding it. But I think changing it from like inside to outside is a nice way of doing it.
Yeah, so that's my plan at the moment. My big goal, I don't know if you've seen, there's a race between Alice Springs and Uluru. It's an ultra marathon through the desert. Oh, I can't remember what it's called, but it's over about 7 days, running through the desert, and it looks pretty cool. So
the track Outback, is that it?
Oh yeah, Outback something.
So how long do you get to do that? Oh, a self-supported 520-kilometer race. Yeah, gross.
I should probably start. I've never run an ultra marathon, so I should probably start with that first and then work my way up to that. But you know,
well, clearly those rules don't apply to you. What did you went from a mixed assault bike to breaking the pull-up world record, which is a pretty fucking crazy step. Yeah. You haven't competed in any other challenges? Like, you literally went from mixed team assault bike, 24 hours of pull-ups.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the training I do is cross training. So I do, you know, functional training, probably CrossFit style stuff. So it involves, you know, it gives me a very, very solid base across the board. And then
For sure. And I'm not doubting your day-to-day fitness. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm questioning. I'm just, you know what it is? It's most people feel like they need to go up by 30, 40%, 50%. You've just gone from like 0 to fucking 1,000 in such a short amount of time. I guess that's the part I'm like surprised with.
Yep. Well, I mean, if you're going to do it, you may as well do it right, you know.
Were you surprised by your own result?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, when I first started, I didn't think I could get 4,081. And that I was reluctant to even try. But then I just thought, well, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I'll train for this, and I'll get stronger, you know, in my pull-ups. And if I don't get 4,081, there's so much that can be learned from this. And a lot of it, I wanted to learn and push myself mentally as well, to figure out how to manage, you know, that self-talk within the discomfort, and manage my mindset and that sort of thing. And this was very good training for that, you know, doing hours and hours of pull-ups, especially. It's such a monotonous movement, like you say, and there's no escape from it. I mean, you're in it, and it's just, you got to do what you've got to do.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've got what you wanted from it from a mental perspective?
I think so. And I think it's forced me, like I say, Mike's obviously suggested it, and I didn't think that I could do it, but now anything that I don't think that I can do, I now have to challenge that, because I've proven myself very wrong.
It is quite an empowering thing, isn't it? Like, realizing that you're setting yourself short maybe in so many areas, and then you do something like this, and it breaks the Pandora's box, doesn't it? Like, it's just,
yeah, it does.
What else have I been limiting, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a shift in, you know, perspective towards myself, you know, and yeah, just what I'm capable of. But it's not just me, it's what everybody's capable of. And what everybody just sells themselves a little bit short. And I think the biggest thing is, just because we can't do it now doesn't mean, with the right training and the right programming for you, doesn't mean that you can't do it in time. And that was proven within the training that I did, and just tweaking it to, like you say, work for me.
Nice. Well, we might finish there, Olivia. That was awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the chat.